So, welcome to this first of the series me and Eric's going to do about what we can do and what we can help with. And now we're going to start with covering Engage and what we can do with it and how it will help and ease up your configurations for the future. And for those who doesn't know, Eric Lindeman, you can do a short presentation of yourself.
Okay, I'm Eric. I'm the SE for the Nordics and the BeNeLux. Working closely together with Johan, also to train most of the resellers in my region. I started visiting the Nordics, I think, a year ago in October. I also met some persons of you already in this webinar. And yeah, we're trying to help you out with questions and a lot of training. And I started with NETGEAR, what was it, 10 years ago. I was hired for wireless LAN and switching, and after time I get involved into the ProAV solutions also. And since a year I'm completely dedicated to ProAV. So that's in brief my career with the NETGEAR.
Good. And for those who doesn't know me, I'm Johan Hoel, responsible for the ProAV sales in the Nordics. So for today, we're gonna keep it short and hopefully interesting for you guys. We're gonna cover what Engage is, and I mean the profiles, how to set it up, and then we have a small demo, and of course the Q&A. So if there's any questions that comes up, just type it in the question box and we will cover it by the end of the webinar.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. NETGEAR ProAV profiles. Most of you are already familiar with it, but we have about 240 different manufacturers where we co-working together to get profiles into our switches, especially to make life easy for our resellers and installers on their AV projects. You see a lot of well-known names, and this is no marketing gig. This is a real cooperation. So all the manufacturers there have our switches, and they made up some settings, and we fitted it into a profile. We also have a lot of equipment from those manufacturers in our labs, so it's always easy for us to protect and to find out what's going on and what's going wrong, and anticipate it and correct it on newer firmware or newer profiles. And we also nowadays are combining for the strengths within, by example, Shure, and also a Crestron with the latest firmware to have dedicated profiles for some solutions where some settings are pushed to their equipment. So that's, I think, a good step into technology, especially for the ProAV partners. And yeah, as soon as there is new news or there's an update, we implement all kind of nice profiles. What you see is a little example of those profiles in this screen, and within the profiles it's very easy to create a VLAN and separated audio from video traffic or otherwise conflicting traffic. And yeah, the response from the market as well as from the manufacturers is great, and you see more and more NETGEAR switches approaching on ProAV sites. So what's so efficient about the profiles itself? Of course, it's avoiding mistakes of configuration mistakes. It's by that highly efficient, and it's time saving, of course, and yeah, it's problem saving, and it's very easy to maintain. So what you can do also with the profiles, especially with Engage, is do some troubleshooting, which I going to describe later into this webinar. And yeah, the strength of the profile is also transferred to Engage itself, because when you have multiple switches, you have to configure per switch the VLAN, the MVX or the Dante VLAN or whatever, wire strong VLAN. You have to do it switch by switch. So the thing is, it's a little bit more complicated, and the management is still, what people want is a single pane of view, and not going hoovering over switch by switch by switch and seeing what the settings are on that switch itself, because that's rather time consuming. So that's the point where we introduce NETGEAR Engage to solve all that kind of problems. You can download Engage from netgear.com/engage, and it's available for macOS and Windows. We are working on a Linux version together for the appliances of some manufacturers. And maybe we will, in the later term, we will also distribute a Linux version. But as you know, Linux has a lot of different variants and a lot of the different way of installing. So it takes some time to get to bring the Linux versions also to the public market. So far so good. It's an AV GUI for all M4350, M4300 and M4350 switches, the newer switches. They are all involved into NETGEAR Engage, so very easy to configure and install. You can detect, of course, the switches when you start up Engage. There's a detection going on over your network, and all the switches will, or AV line switches will show up one by one, and you can embed them into your organization or the profile you want to use with those switches. We do a firmware update across the network. So when you start Engage and embed new switches, the firmware will be automatically updated. And also you can use the firmware of the Engage console to update the switches over time when you do maintenance. For maintenance, we go to launch the next webinar. Later on, also some more on the slide. You can also save and deploy your configuration profiles. That's also good news. And you can back up, of course, the Engage controller. So when the controller itself, the PC holding the controller, is failing, you can have a backup and restore it and go on with the management for the AV network within your customers. And of course, there are some tools to document, and there are some tools, especially tools for reporting to NETGEAR when there are problems on your network, or when you want a second opinion of the installation for your network. That I also going to demonstrate in this session. So when there are questions, please put it in the Q&A session, and we will answer them. Of course, it's a small portable application for Windows and Macintosh, and we don't do an install, we do a copy, and then it's good to go and you can work with it. Of course, I have to make a statement because of the management of the switches ourselves. The best way to manage the switches is based on the management VLAN, by default VLAN 1, but you can change the VLAN number for the management VLAN on the switches. It's also a good idea to connect all other switches to the management VLAN, of course. And the other way to manage the switches and use Engage is via the OOB management port. But most of the time, there will be an extra computer or a NUC installed, or a virtual machine installed, where NETGEAR Engage is installed. And the virtual machine is then connected to the management VLAN of the switches. Of course, the management VLAN must be always up and running on our switches. So it's always good to have some connections to the management VLAN. And that's also be solved when you hook up other switches and when you hook up the management appliance. So what I'm going to demonstrate, this is my home network. What you see on the left, in my home network, I have connected a NETGEAR M4350 and 4300 series of switches, and I connected my notebook with Engage on one of the ports of the switch. I have this switch as a dedicated router into my AV network. I think that's also the best approach for an AV network, to do the routing on the spine switch and not on the router itself. Of course, my spine switch is delivering DHCP. And on my spine switch, I'm going to connect a 1 gigabit leaf switch with a lot of audio appliances. And the other switch is a 10 gigabit leaf switch for video. We're also going to hook up over 10 gigabit on the fiber port. So far, so good. You all know when we connected two ports of a switch to another switch, LCP trunking will be done automatically. And that's, I think, a very handy solution to have this all working up and hook up switches on a rather dynamic way and preserve bandwidth. Please be aware that if you use LCP, that you have always multiples of 2 wires between the switches. And it's a good solution to resolve bandwidth problems, of course. I'm also going to create a video VLAN. The video VLAN will spread it over my video switch with 8 ports of 1 gigabit and 2 ports on my other switch, my audio switch on the right side, the 1 gigabit leaf switch. And I'm also going to create a Dante VLAN. Dante VLAN will be on the right switch, on the 1 gigabit leaf switch, and I have a couple of ports on the 10 gigabit leaf switch also. And this is, I think, a rather practical example. So first, I'm going to show how you and where you can download, install, and how you can install Engage on your notebook or on your appliance. First, you can go to netgear.com/engage. When you enter this, you are getting on the landing page of Engage. You can click on download, and there you can see the Engage controller versions. If you push it down, you can also need the release notes, of course. And when you click on download, Engage is going to be downloaded. After the download is finished, you have to unpack it. And if you unpack it, you can start it up. It's unpacking. Yeah, here it is. First time installation, you can add a destination folder. It can also be a thumb drive, but most of the time it's a documents directory on your PC. Every single file of the Engage installation is copied to the directory, and when you do updates on Engage, it's used exactly the same directory to update the Engage version of your switch. But that's for a later webinar. When Engage is started for the first time, you have to provide Engage with your own password. And the screen will show up right away. Okay, you have to log in, of course. And then you have to enable Engage with a password. The password is purely for Engage itself and not for the locations you are going to make. Of course, you can use the same password, but Engage is a location-driven appliance or solution management solution. So you can create a site. I call it Eric's Demo. You have to add a site subscription, and then you can have a site-specific password. And every time you enter a switch onto the location, this password will be installed on those switches. So that's also very easy. You can work with a static IP address on your notebook. You can work with a static IP address, and your notebook can act as a DHCP server. And you can work with a dynamic IP address. For this, I'm using a dynamic IP address, and I select my network adapter for Engage in the drop-down box. At a little moment, the screen is coming up again with some information. Yeah, there you can see it. It's the main page of the device setup. And here below you can see the switches I have on my location. And with clicking on onboard, I can add those switches to the location itself. Because my switches are default resetted, I use the device default password and I click on add. And I do this also for all the other switches. So we go to onboard. Exactly. Okay, I'm hovering over. And on onboard, you can add the other switch also with the device default password. Also resetted the switch for this demo, add, and then the last switch on board, also device default password. Okay, so far so good. All switches are into Engage now, and I can click on next. With the next, the switches are going to be updated, so that's why we take a notice to warn you that if a switch is updated, it's going to be reboot. At this stage, I can click Add Network Profile, but I skip this. I go to Next, and I go to onboard all the switches. Because my switches are already on the right firmware, it's taking a short amount of time to get them onboarded. When your switches doesn't have the right firmware, the onboarding take a little longer because all switches involved are going to be updated. Out of the box, it looked like this, and what I like to have on my systems, of course, is to make use of a system name, but make it more recognizable, and especially when you have drawings. I think it's a good idea to create system names for your switches. So I first started with the spine switch, and I also have a 1 gig and a 10 gig switch. So I select the 10 gig switch, and I call it 10 gigabit leaf switch, and the other switch I call 1 gigabit leaf switch. So it's very recognizable out of the box, especially when Engage is presenting you a drawing of your network. It's easy to discover the switch itself. What I also like to do is work with static IP addresses. So I go to the switch itself, to the menu. I create a static IP address, static, and I overrule the DHCP address. It takes me a little moment to configure all those addresses. And what I do is also apply it, of course, and I configure also the other switches with an IP address. And what you can see, what I've done is all the names are set and all the IP addresses are on the right way as I want it on my own site. So far so good. So this makes us to gets us to the rest of the setup, because I want to create routing VLANs. First, I'm going to click on site settings, and on the site settings I can activate auto trunk and auto lag. Auto trunk and auto lag is by default disabled when you use an M4300 switch into your network. When you're using all other VLAN switches, auto trunk and auto lag will be enabled by default. This is because of the history of the M4300 series, of course. What I can do is I can choose a profile for video, as you all have seen already with the AV menus. I can give the profile a name. I can enter a VLAN ID. In this case, I use VLAN 10, and I can add a color. Now, as you have been on my trainings, we have to configure every switch, but now the VLAN databases are provided to all the switches, and I only have to click on the switch in my topology and click on the ports I like to configure for video, and then you're good to go. As you see here, also go to my 1 gig switch for 2 ports. I click on 40 and 39. I promised apply, and with confirm you can create the new profile for all your switches. With the recent version of Engage, the wizard will be activated for VLAN routing, but I skipped this for this one. I'm also going to create a Dente VLAN. The profile name is Dente Audio. I give the VLAN number 20. I take the color blue. Okay. Then next. Then I get a presentation of my network again. And there I can click on the switch and add the ports for the VLAN. Okay, the 1 gigabit. switch. There is no shift option or select all ports or select multiple ports option, but that's on the roadmap for later on. But you can see nicely what ports are selected in the network, and you click on apply, confirm, and now all my networks are configured. When I click on topology, you see the spine switch, the leaf switch, and within the new wizard I can activate routing on that part. But for now I'm going to activate routing on the switch itself, on the central switch itself, by the old-fashioned way. I go to network profiles, I go to the video profile, go to edit, and enable routing, just like you can do with the AV menu. You can go to static, you can give the switch an IP address for that VLAN. Please remember, always use the lowest possible IP address to force the switch as a query, multicast query, subnet mask 25250. We can also configure a DHCP server, and we can adjust the DHCP pool. Of course, for name resolving, you can provide some DNS information. And I use 1.1.1, 8.8.8, and with apply, your routing is configured. I also going to do this for the Dante VLAN, of course. So I have to go to the triple dot symbol, to Dante, edit, enable routing, go to DHCP client. And in January, we have a webinar where we're going to discuss the new VLAN, static VLAN routing. So I'm going to demo that also. Go to apply. Okay, DNS, DHCP pool, sorry. Add some DNS figures. And apply. So all my VLANs are configured right now. My routing is configured the right way. And at this stage, I can hook up my encoders, decoders for video over Dante. And it's good to go. Okay. Success? Yes. Done. Okay, everything's configured. So let's go to the other slide. There are some nice ways, there are extra tools into Engage nowadays for documenting. And I'd like to show you the way to get the documentation on a short way. You can export your VLAN settings into the site settings and click on export, and then you can get a CSV file with all the information. It uses the VLANs, the port you've used. So I click on save. Okay. I open the file. And what you can do with this file is enter it into your documentation. So that's also looking nice. And the most beautiful thing of all is the way we are able to report and to do diagnostics with support. If you go to the support part of Engage and you click on also controller log file and site configuration file, you can download at once all logging information and all information to one zip container. So what you can we can also present is all the attached devices. You can also go to abstract view and see all the switches involved and how they're connected together. And then it's going to generate a report. So all this information is gathered, all tech support files, all the the log files and that kind of for the switches, configuration files are gathered together in one zip container. I'm going to show you how what the zip container looks like. It says two directories, a site with all site information and controller information. And it is also having the tech support files, you see. So if you have 24 or 48 switches into your network, it gathers all the tech support information, and it looks very nice. To see a representation, of course, what you've seen earlier, the tree preview, all the devices, and you can also, I can also show you the topology overview. You can also hustle around the switches, and with the newer version of Engage, the circles are gone and are replaced by the symbols of the switch itself, of the pictures of the switch itself. This is one of the tech support files, so you can see there's SNMP information inside of it, the amount of connected devices, the amount of traffic on ports, the used resources in a switch, yeah, whatever you want, lags used, SFP modules used, the brand of SFP modules used, the MAC tables, whatever you can think about, is all in this log file. And also the good thing is that you see the packets, the lost packets. There is also the CSV file if you look later on. And the good news is that if you have a support call, we immediately download those files and provide us this information. We have all information needed to help you out of your configuration or troubleshooting problems. We see a lot of information. Even the dumps, the memory dumps of the switches are installed, copied into this file. So when you have a problem on a switch, and don't pull out the power, please keep it on power and get the log files out of the switches. You see the configuration, and below you can see if there is later on, a little bit later, there will be crash dump information. So when needed, we have all information, and that can help you right away with answering questions, with helping you with configuration, or improving our firmware of the switches itself or for the controller. The log directory is the log files from the controller itself. So if there's something wrong with the controller, you can also diagnostic the log files. So far so good. I think there are a lot of advantages to use Engage into your network, not only for configuration, synchronization of firmware, but also for logging and also for support process. So I think it's a good idea to send you to the download directory of Engage and try to work with it. Okay, so far so good. We have a small resume. NETGEAR Engage makes life easy. It's simple to install. It's high efficient. There's a lot of reporting inside of it. There's a documentation tool, and it's very cost effective. So I hand over the microphone to Johan, because for the other slides or to present all the slides on what else we do offer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what else do we offer? I mean, it always is good to remind the people that the AV line is covered by a lifetime warranty. No need to pay a license or an extra fee to get it. It's covered, and we have the next day replacement if needed. So I think that's a really good thing to mention. And we also offer the ProAV design team. Eric is part of the ProAV design team, and that would, if you haven't already used or been in contact with that team, you should definitely do it. Even if you think you know everything about the case that you're working on, it's always a good thing to get a second opinion, because they will help out with the pre-sales part where you sit and think about the project. They will help you to design it the way that NETGEAR would and can guarantee functionality. But we also do some support during the installation. So if there's any troubles or people doesn't remember how to use for Engage, for example, they will jump on a call, help you live on site to get it going. And of course, if there's anything afterwards, they will help you out to troubleshoot and make sure that your installation is gonna work. We also offer trainings. Of course, we are working on some new trainings on the site, but I would recommend everybody to at least do the fundamentals of AV on NETGEAR site, so you get quite a broad understanding of what we are doing and why it's important to do it right from the beginning. Should we highlight the next webinar as well?
Yeah.
So for the next webinar, we're going to be, as you see here, we have a timing here saying 11,
yeah.
But again on Zoom, it's 10:30.
Yeah.
So we will agree on doing it 10:30 and be very clear on it in the invites. So for that webinar, it's again about Engage, but also a little bit more of the configuration part. We already have, I think we have a QR code somewhere here for the ones that wants to sign up. We will send it out the way that we send out the previous invite, but you can already now sign up if you want to have it in your calendar. I think we will. Is this? Yeah, we're gonna do 2 more this year, I think, and then we have 1 for next year.
Yeah.
But we're gonna keep it short and cover, you know, just this basic or easy topics every time, so it doesn't be too long.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna send it out and spread it as we usually do. So you can take the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
The roll-up.
And yeah, so I mean, I hope that most of you are aware of the beauty about NETGEAR AV. But I mean, it's a complete package. I mean, the software is state of the art. The hardware, well, yeah, it's magic. And of course, the support team with Eric and his team that supports you all the way from start to end. That's really, really, really important. Okay, I think we should go to the question part, the Q&A. We have open questions, yes.
Yeah, we had some remarks about the timing of the webinar itself, but that's all solved.
Yeah, but did you answer Brian's question regarding the VLANs? Because he wrote that can I have a control system that needs access to both VLAN 10 and 20, but I think that's a little bit that's going to be covered up in the next one. But yes, we can. You can have that.
Yeah, you can. Normally, the control isn't a problem, because if you adjust your routing the right way, you can address all devices on the IP address. But most of the time, when you use a different control system, the discovery of the devices will be the problem, because that's driven by a broadcast. So, and that's why you see, especially also on a Wirestorm controller I'm using at my office, you see that there is one connection for the control network and one connection for the Wirestorm network. You see it also on Yamaha mixers. There is a separate Ethernet port for control, and those controllers are sending the broadcast or the unicast to gather the speakers or the encoders, decoders over the other port, not on the control port itself, but on the port connected to the VLAN where the decoders and the encoders are residing. And so the devices can be discovered. But also a little point of attention, when you use a control network and you're using a route to the internet, please be sure you configured your static routing the right way, because the router to the internet isn't aware of the VLANs you created on the NETGEAR switches itself. So always add static routes to that router, so the traffic is going to be capable of traversing over the network itself. I have not the next webinar, but the third webinar in this series is also addressing this kind of situations. Does it answer your question, Brian?
I think so. We don't have any other questions. If there's anything else, just send us an email. If there's a question that you didn't want to bring up as a question live, we are here and we are present to help you every day.
Okay.
But then we wrap it up, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you all for attending, and have a great Friday.
Okay. Thank you all for being in the webinar, and see you over 2 weeks in the next webinar.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.